In today's Noob to Pro guide for Hutao, we're going to be covering basic combo, animation cancel, team rotation, and build and stuff. I realized that not enough people are actually teaching people how to play characters. Because of that, I'm trying to do as many of these Noob to Pro guide as possible. So if you learned something from this video, consider subscribing and we're going to get started right away. Worth mentioning is that when you're playing Hutao, try to stay under 50% HP, simply because her A4 talent will give you 33% pyro damage if you are under 50% HP. The most basic Hutao combo is to pair her with Xingqiu's and then do a bunch of charge attacks so you can do a lot of vaporize damage. This is because her charge attack not only have very high scaling, but also have no internal cooldown, so that you can do vaporize attack on every single hit. The first thing I want to talk about is hit lag extension. What does that mean is that every time you hit an enemy, you will have some hit lag and it will extend the duration of your elemental skill. Now normally Hutao elemental skill lasts for 9 seconds, but in this clip here, you can see that Hutao actually spent about 14 seconds in her elemental skill. Does that mean that the more you can hit your enemy, the more time you can get in your elemental skills, and therefore the more damage you can done? Basically, just try to hit the enemy as much as possible. In the exact same clip, you actually notice that he casted his elemental burst all the way at the very end. However, as it turned out, during a animation which, for example, your charge attack, your elemental skill form cannot expire. So as long as you are in the middle of your attack, you cannot lose the damage bonus that you get from your elemental skill form. This means that by chaining a charge attack, and before your charge attack animation finish, you do your elemental burst, you are guaranteed to get the attack damage bonus onto your elemental burst as well. Aside from hit lag extension, the next thing to notice is that without charge attack have a very long animation. It brings you a very far distance, and there's a very long delay before you can attack again. And because of that, we're going to introduce something called the jump cancelling for Constellation 0 player. The jump cancelling essentially input a jump command right after you do a charge attack to cancel the ending animation of the charge attack. So what you would do is input a charge attack and then immediately jump after. So you do a charge attack and then jump, charge attack and then jump. And you'll notice that I can attack much faster and I'll travel much shorter distances. For example, this is what Hutao charge attack normally look like. Notice that I travel a very long distance and there's a very long delay between my attack. If we instead do the jump cancel, then it will actually look something like this instead. When we introduce the jump cancel, you'll notice that I travel much less distance than before, and I'm able to get charge attack in much quicker than before. However, we can actually do better than that. If you're very quick on your cancel, you can actually not even dash through the enemy. For example, as seen in this clip, you can see that my Hutao doesn't actually go through the Magu Genki, but yet the charge attack damage number will still pop up, indicating that I'm currently still hitting my charge attack. So you can see that I'm able to maintain being in front of him at all time. By doing animation cancel, you are able to get much more charge attack in on your Hutao and therefore just get much more damage. For a person who don't do any animation cancel to a person who do a decent amount of jump animation cancel, you're looking at about 20 to 30% damage difference, which is very significant, and it's the reason why you really need to practice your animation cancel on Hutao. Now something else you would notice is that even though we started with full stamina before our Hutao combo, by the end of our Hutao combo, we're actually going to be draining our stamina all the way to 0, and we're going to have 0 stamina. This is because now that we're doing much more charge attack than before, we're also consuming stamina at a much faster rate than before. Because of this, doing N2CJ is much more recommended, which means doing 2 normal attack before you do a charge attack. So for example, as demonstrated in this clip, you do 2 normal attack followed by a charge attack every single time, instead of just doing 1 normal attack and then followed by a 1 charge attack. You lose a very little bit amount of damage. However, as you can see at the end of our combo, our stamina is going to be much better. If you have been practicing your animation cancel and you're proficient at doing it, you will actually be able to do about 8 N2CJ within 1 elemental skill window and follow it up with your elemental burst at the very end there as well, as demonstrated right here. Aside from the jump cancel, there's actually another type of cancel known as the dash cancel. Basically, instead of using a jump to cancel your charge attack, you actually use a dash to cancel your charge attack instead. This is not only much easier to do, but it actually comes out much faster when compared to the jump cancel. However, it does have a very significant drawback, and that is it will cost you double amount of the stamina, because not only are you spending stamina to do charge attack now, you're also going to be spending stamina on your dashing, and therefore it's not really realistic to do in actual combat unless you have Constellation 1. With that being said, however, the dash cancel is by far the best way to do damage on Hutao, and it's the fastest way to get your damage out. So if you're just looking for quick burst damage, doing the dash cancel can be very beneficial even at Constellation 0, as demonstrated here versus the Hydro Hypostasis. However, for long combat, it's not very realistic to do dash cancel without Constellation 1 simply because it costs way too much stamina. With Constellation 1, your charge attack no longer costs any stamina, and therefore you can spare all your stamina for dashing. There's actually a slight problem with doing dash cancel, and that is in Genshin Impact, there's actually a cooldown between your dash. After you have dashed twice on a character, you'll notice that you cannot dash the third time in a very rapid succession. So there's actually a cooldown after you dash twice in Genshin Impact. That means after you do 2 dash cancel with Hutao, you actually might not be able to do the third one because your dash will be on cooldown and you've been doing your dashes too quickly. So for example, let me demonstrate it real quick. You notice that even though I did press my dash button on the third attack, the dash actually did not come out and I am unable to do my dash cancel simply because I did the first and the second one too fast. So you actually cannot do it too fast, you have to be careful of doing your timing. However, similar to before, even at Constellation 1 and when you're doing dash cancel, doing N2CD, which means 2 normal attack before you do a charge attack, is much more recommended because it's just a nicer on your stamina, and you're also not restricted to the dash lockout in this case. For a player who is proficient at doing their dash cancel, it is possible to do 12 N2CD followed by a elemental burst at the very end if you are very good at doing your animation cancel, where this player is actually doing it on a PS4 controller, as you can see on the screen right now. While doing 12 N2 CD might be very difficult if you have average human finger. If you're really into min-maxing, what you could do is simply combine N2 CD with N1 CD. You're going to be doing exactly 10 N2 CD followed by 2 N1 CD in a total for 12 charge attack, similar to before. A really good way to time your N2CJ or N2CD is actually to listen to the sound cue. Hutao's second attack have a very loud and a very distinct sound, as you can hear. And that's the sound cue of when you should cancel the attack. Once you hear the sound cue, you want to cancel the attack right there. Try paying attention to see if you can hear the sound cue very quickly. You hear that immediately after the distinguished whoosh noise, you want to do your jump or your dash in order to cancel that attack. Overall, animation cancelling on Hutao is something that you're gonna have to spend a lot of time on practicing in order to fully master it. And if you're not gonna spend time mastering those combos, I'll be honest, Hutao is not gonna perform very well. So be sure to spend some time practicing them before you bring Hutao into actual combat. Remember to try to bring a shield if you can. Bringing a shield is not necessary, but heavily recommended if you're playing a Hutao, simply because this will allow you to dodge less in actual combat and therefore save all your stamina, and you will save all those stamina to do charge attack, and it's heavily recommended. So either a Zhongli or a Toma with your Hutao is heavily recommended. So with that being said, let's talk about rotation. There's 2 types of mainstream Hutao team. The first one is to pair Hutao Sing Shields with double Geo. The other is to pair Hutao Sing Shields with a Pyro and with a Nemo characters, which have a much harder rotation time. However, with the release of Toma, I suspect that to Hutao, Sing Shields, Toma, and finally Sucrose or Kasa, it's gonna fully dominate the mainstream Hutao team. Nevertheless, we're gonna be covering all of those team rotation in today's video. When you are playing Hutao Sing Shields with double Geo, what you want to do is start with your Sing Shields elemental burst and skills, followed by Zhongli elemental skill for the shield. And then you want to switch to either your Ningguang or your Albedo, which is your second Geo slot, and then cast their elemental burst, as well as skills. This will allow you to do a crystallized reaction on Ningguang, as well as transfer elemental mastery, and finally switch to Hutao to do your normal combo. Very straightforward, and you'll just repeat this in a cycle. Likewise, Hutao, Sing Shields, Diona, Kaya used to be a popular team, but it's now outdated. And it's very straightforward. Start with Sing Shields, moving on to the Diona for the shield, move on to Kaya for the elemental burst and skill, and just go for Hutao. Pretty much every single team just go from Xingqius and then through your team and then back to Hutao. Moving on to the other type of team, which is Hutao, Xingqius, and then a Pyro character, usually Ember and then Sucrose. What you want to do in this case is start with your Xingqius combo, so your elemental burst and your elemental skills, and then cast your Pyro source, which in this case is going to be the Ember elemental burst. You want to make sure to finish off the Hydro so that you will get the Pyro onto your enemy. Once you have the Pyro on your enemy, you want to do a Sucrose elemental skills. This will swirl the Pyro and therefore decrease the Pyro resistance. And finally, you transfer your elemental mastery and your TTDS onto the Hutao, and then do your Hutao normal combo as we described in the early part of this video. If you're clicking fast enough, you can actually switch to Sucrose and do a normal attack before the Ember elemental burst come down. This will allow you to swirl Hydro right before you swirl the Pyro, which means you'll get both Pyro and Cryo resistance decrease. And if you're using a Kaza instead of Sucrose, you want to try to go for the double swirl, and here's how to do it. Again, start with the Xingqiu standard combo, so your elemental burst and your elemental skill. Switch to your Kaza for your elemental burst. This will swirl Hydro and therefore give damage to your Xingqius. Immediately switch to your Ember and cast her elemental burst. This will not only wipe out the Hydro from the enemy, but will also let your Kazuha swirl Pyro when you switch back to the Kazuha and then do his elemental skills. And so therefore, you will now have swirled both Pyro and Hydro. And finally, at this point, switch back to your Hutao and start your normal combo once again as before. With that being said, let's quickly go over how to build Hutao. The first thing to build Hutao is her weapon, and if you have a Staff of Homer, always use a Staff of Homer. However, if you don't, then the Dragon Bane is going to be the next to be recommended, or the Deathmatch. You know that the Dragon Bane is usually better than the Deathmatch simply because it's easier to get Dragon Bane refinement than Deathmatch refinement. In terms of artifact, Hutao's absolute best sets is the 4-set Crimson Wish of Flame. However, this set is very resin inefficient to farm, so unless you're planning on doing a one trick with Hutao, this might not be worth your time farming. Instead, what you could go for is simply some other combination of pieces, such as the 4-piece Shimenawa. The 4-piece Shimenawa, while not being that good as Crimson Wish of Flame, it's much more resin efficient to farm simply because the domain is much better in the sense that it also dropped you the Umbum set. Do know that the Shimenawa will be about 5 to 10% less damage than the Crimson Wish of Flame, depending on your substat. So if you can get a good 4-piece Crimson Wish of Flame, that's gonna be much better as a result. However, while we're on the topic of 4 Shimenawa, you can actually achieve the exact same or similar damage with using either 2 Crimson Wish, 2 Wander, 2 Wander, 2 Tenacity, or 2 Tenacity, 2 Crimson Wish as a combo set. And therefore, if you have those could be a good option to go for as well. Overall, it will depend on which combination gives you the best substat. Although that usually might actually end up being a 4 Shimenawa, simply because the Umbum set is so good that you should always almost be farming for it. Substat wise, same as always, crit rate or crit damage on your Circlet, Pyro damage Goblet, and then either a HP or Elemental Mastery Sense. Now, Elemental Mastery Sense will give you more damage than the HP Sense in most cases, but HP Sense will give you more survivability while being very competitive in damage, so that's not a bad idea either. Overall, just use the one with better substat, in which case I have a really good Elemental Mastery Sense, and that's why I'm using it. You pretty much always want to use a HP Sense over Attack Sense if you have one, simply because HP scale much harder on Hutao. And while we're on the topic, leveling Hutao to level 90 is very worth, because Hutao scale with HP, and so therefore getting that bonus HP at level 90 is very good. On top of that, Hutao is a hyper carry, which means most likely if you're playing Hutao, you'll want to put a lot more resin in compared to other characters into her. Talents, normal attack, elemental skill should be equally leveled, and then finally followed by your elemental burst. In the end, there's a decent amount of stuff to go on with Hutao, especially with the animation cancel. I would dare to say that Hutao is the most mechanical lock character in Genshin Impact. Because of that, be sure to spend your time practicing those animation cancel. And with that being said, as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.